speech is a language of control, a language of position, a language of fragmentation, a language of giving rights to some at the expense of others. It tells us, even if we have a facade of rhetorical peace, of language, of ending conflict, this is a facade that entrenches more of the sides of control. So the language itself is not the solution. Laws themselves are never the solution. Laws can provide a vehicle. Now, where do you go with this vehicle is the different answer.
Thank you, Jenna. Let's start with the second round. We'll stay with the second round of questions. So we can stay with your thoughts. So can you tell us, what is the role of corporations in this process?
Interesting. The role of corporations. So let me take you one step back into history. The way, two thoughts here. One, the way the Jewish migration and presence on the land in Palestine, it was done through the logic of corporations. Come, let's do business. And then from that business, it became a different type of business that has controlled my life and has controlled my destiny as a Palestinian person. This is one form of corporation. Now, the presence on the land and how lands get confiscated or exploited or fragmented or abused doesn't matter the form, whether the form is a formal control or through corporations. So from the end of the user, like the user of the land, whether my occupation is Israel, is a colonial power, or a sovereign state, or a corporate presence on the land, for me it's all the same. Because the end result is what? The end result is that people are not allowed to exercise their basic fundamental human rights. So for me, whether today my problem in Palestine is the Israeli occupation, or the Israeli occupation that is being greatly sponsored and financed by these mega superpowers that are at the heart of corporate powers also, for me it's the same result. It's the denial of human rights of some people, the denial of the exercise of their basic rights, that are coming at the expense of what? Corporate interests. And we've seen now two years of uninterrupted bombardment, wiping off Palestinians in a fast and slow logics of death in Palestine. These are being done through what? There's a very lucrative form of occupation that is happening. In Palestine, through the laws, we have, by the law, to import everything through Israel. We have, through the law, to export everything also through Israel. Even when Israel gets to destroy our houses, rebuilding the houses, they have to be done through Israeli companies. The besiegement of Gaza was put under besiegement, air, sea and land, 18 years. Kids could not get access to chocolate. There were different lists of what is allowed inside Gaza, what is not allowed inside Gaza. Pasta was treated as a security threat, so people were not allowed to have pasta for many years. Growing corn, it was not allowed in Gaza for security threat, because if we grow corn, what happens? It is a big security threat. So imagine a full population being caged in one place with no access to the most basic rights. However, humanitarian aid, even the UN, when the UN is bringing humanitarian aid into Gaza, when it's allowed, it's all gone through companies. The security system, Israeli security system, it's not merely IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. These are private companies. So when we think about the logic of occupation, it's a very lucrative system. It's a system that is done for sustainability of Israel at the expense of denying the existence of the Palestinian people. What does it tell us by learning from us, the Palestinians? The logic of corporations, what is happening, the logic of exploitation. We are a case study, we're a living example. Don't let this happen to you.
Let's move back to Debbie. Debbie, what role do peasant movements like the KPA play in terms of securing land tenure for rural communities? What's your strategy?
Yeah, based on our experience, at least there is like three aspects that we try to promote. First one is about the policy advocacy on how to improve the policy and also to making the policy really in favor for agrarian reform implementations. Because since 1960, we already have basic agrarian law, but actually we don't have operational regulations on how government should be implement agrarian reform. So in 2018, as an example, we succeed together with the civil society organization with our alliance. We succeed to pass on the president regulations on agrarian reform in 2018. So including how to make sure that the farmers and peasants become subject of law for agrarian reform process. And including on how also to advocate the policy that contradict with agrarian reform. So many law has been advocate through the Constitutional Court. We are able to stop the article that has been discriminate farmers' right to land, and also the freedom for the union or the peasants to unite it in the union's form. So that's an example, the importance of policy aspect. The second one is our role is to strengthen people's organizations. Many people are in the conflict situations, not united as a union. So our role is to promote people to be united in the union. So in that sense, they can have the capacity to defend themselves, including on how to have a perspective on gender justice, so women can also have adequate process on land redistributions. And the third one is our role is to promote the model of agrarian reform, because sometimes our government doesn't know exactly how to implement agrarian reform. So our role is to provide the data and analysis, land control and ownership that already occupied and reclaimed by the people, farmers and indigenous, and then propose to the government to be prioritized by the policy. And the latest one, I think, about the strategy, how to maintain our political position. Our relations with the government sometimes very dynamic, not always in the same table. So sometimes we also combine with the confrontations and mass mobilization to give pressure to the government. So there will be a change in terms of agrarian reform implementation, including on how to against particular law that discriminates peasants and indigenous.
Silvia, ¿cuáles son las demandas más urgentes de la Convención Nacional Campesina hoy en torno a la reforma agraria y la redistribución de la tierra?
Bueno, nosotros como Convención Nacional Campesina exigimos no solamente la implementación de la reforma agraria, sino una reforma agraria integral y popular, donde mujeres, jóvenes, personas desde la comunidad sean beneficiadas de ello. Desde la Convención Nacional Campesina se ha venido trabajando en la formulación de un capítulo campesino donde recoge todas esas problemáticas y las soluciones que se pueden dar en la implementación. Entonces, nosotros sí exigimos que seamos escuchados, porque hemos estado en diferentes escenarios trabajando con nuestro gobierno a lo largo también de la historia, pero solamente hemos estado como por momentos. Creo que coincidimos con varios de nuestros compañeros en el panel, no acorde la institucionalidad con lo que está pasando en el territorio, cómo se está moviendo la comunidad campesina. Entonces, sí tenemos que haber una articulación para poder avanzar. También una distribución justa de la tierra, porque pues aquí lo que nos reúne es el tema de la tierra. Por la mala distribución, por la inequidad, por la concentración del poder, se le da un mal uso al suelo, a la tierra, y de ahí cae toda esta problemática ambiental, ¿cierto? Una problemática cultural, social. Entonces no hay un tema de sostenibilidad, los ejes de la sostenibilidad no están allí. También un acto legislativo donde se nos reconozcan a los campesinos como cuidadores del territorio, como lo han sido nuestras comunidades indígenas, nuestras comunidades afro. Nosotros también somos protectores de la biodiversidad. El campesinado también cuida y preserva, no somos depredadores, no somos devastadores, somos también guardianes y cuidadores de semillas. Entonces, nosotros seguimos en un tema de resistencia, que se nos sea escuchados, escuchadas, que se nos sean involucrados y que no se nos excluyan en todos estos procesos ni políticos, ni sociales, ni ambientales.
Gracias. Pasando, moving to Doris. Doris, how does the intersection of gender and land rights shape agrarian movements?
Yeah, thanks. The issues of land rights and gender and agrarian movements are very intertwined. To begin with, when it comes to agrarian movements, for example, for Groups Kenya, it's not just about production, it's not just about land use, it's not just about harvesting from the field, but it's actually an issue of power, it's an issue of dignity, it's an issue of justice. And so how we are able to intertwine the three, number one is around centering women's voices when it comes to all conversations of land struggles. No longer are grassroots women and girls sitting down and being okay with being land recipients, but they are now at the forefront of actually being key decision makers. And so over the past 30 years, we have seen grassroots women sitting in what we define as land control boards. We have seen grassroots women sitting into community land management committees, which are very powerful structures of how lands are being used. So it's the movement beyond just using land, but actually intersecting the women's voice in this space. Secondly, women have become the drivers of agroecological practices. We know that agroecology is one of the pathways to ensuring that we have security of food. And so we already know that women in our communities often are the ones who are offering this agroecology labor. And so it's the reality of having women at the forefront of each conversation around agroecology. For example, for Groups Kenya, we recently pioneered one of the very first gender transformative agroecology modules in the country, which will lead to gender transformative agroecology practices being trained by government extension officers around the country. Number three, it's the reality of using movement building. I cannot talk about Groups Kenya, for example, and not talk about groups. We do not work with individuals, we work with groups of women because it leads to collective action. And so the reality of these women coming together to be able to transform the agrarian reform is something that we are putting at the forefront. Last but not least, it's about changing the narratives of the conversations of agrarian reform. When I was a young girl, I will tell you for a fact, I did not want to be associated with anything pertaining farming or agriculture. In fact, my parents, for example, would tell me, and tell most of my colleagues and young women in Africa that please work hard so that you don't become a farmer. That needs to change because this farmer is the person who is actually making sure we put food in our stomachs. This farmer is the person who has the capacity to make sure economic productions of our country are moving forward. So it's about making even that look sexy. Since when do we see young women with nails like mine, with lashes like the ones I have on, being on posters of agriculture so that we can be the ones who are encouraging the young generation of women that is coming after us that you can be beautiful, but you can also do agriculture. So those are some of the things that we are doing
around agriculture. And I see that Tina has been becoming more stricter and stricter with the time. The time is slowly getting shorter with every speaker. Okay. Cesar, how does the Brazilian government currently engage with social movements like the Amnesty, the Violence Workers Movement, in shaping their policy? You have 10 seconds.
Nós estamos no Brasil no terceiro mandato do presidente Lula. O primeiro e o segundo mandato, que foi de 2013 a 2010, foi um período que mais se distribuiu terra no Brasil, que mais se criou assentamentos. O presidente Lula assume em 2023, depois de praticamente 2 períodos de governo que reprimiram a reforma agrária e paralisaram o processo de acesso à terra, tanto a sem terras, como indígenas, como afrodescendentes. O governo ele enxerga o MST e os movimentos sociais como agentes importantes de transformação, que fazem parte do tecido social e que nós dialogamos com todos. O INCRA possui os 20 estados da federação, mais o Distrito Federal, possui estruturas com superintendências regionais. No anos de 2023 e 2024, nós fizemos o planejamento da nossa instituição, dialogando com todos os movimentos sociais, com relação aos... já me deu um minuto. Com relação aos nossos queridos povos, territórios quilombolas do Brasil, estabelecemos uma mesa permanente de negociação que acontece em todos os estados e também na direção nacional do INCRA, e também o MDA foi reconstruído como Ministério de Desenvolvimento Agrário e Agricultura Familiar, possui o CONDRAF, que é o Conselho Nacional de Desenvolvimento Rural e Agricultura Familiar, e a partir dele todos os movimentos participam. E a ação da reforma agrária é entendida como uma ação necessária e articulada com as forças sociais e as políticas públicas do Estado brasileiro.
Thanks, Cesar. Actually, let's get back to, let's stay with you, Cesar, now we're on the last round. We're almost there, too. Cesar, so what would be given this, what would be the main challenges in terms of enforcing agrarian reform? Os desafios maiores.
Muito bem. Como eu comentei, os desafios hoje passam pela reconstrução daquilo que foi destruído nos últimos anos, e a reforma agrária aqui há de se registrar que a reforma agrária e a democracia devem andar juntas. São um processo de mobilização social. O Brasil viveu um período antidemocrático e agora a gente está reconstruindo. Então, o Ministério de Desenvolvimento Agrário sendo reconstruído, ele passa a ser assim, um espaço institucional para a construção da política pública a partir da legislação que existe. Importante aqui como desafio a criação de mecanismos que favoreçam a distribuição de terra. Na legislação, na legislação atual, a gente mexia só com desapropriação por interesse social. O presidente Lula criou o programa Terra da Gente, que são 17 formas de obtenção de terra, que passam por terras públicas, que passam por gestão do território, que passam por acesso a terras que foram entregues aos bancos públicos por conta de falência de projetos agropecuários, que passam por um conjunto de ações de grandes devedores e terras dos estados que são entregues para a reforma agrária. Eu acho que aperfeiçoar, um outro desafio, aperfeiçoar a fiscalização da função social da terra e articular políticas para que as famílias permaneçam na terra, como crédito, como educação, como acesso à formação, como acesso ao conhecimento. E também a questão das tecnologias para a gestão territorial, com inteligência, percebendo os movimentos do capital dentro do acesso à terra. E nós temos um cadastro com 7 milhões de estabelecimentos e analisamos eles. Estamos com 2 milhões de propriedades já georreferenciadas e fazendo um estudo cotidiano para a ação de intervenção fundiária.
Excellent. Thanks. Thanks, Cesar. Let's move this way. Move it over to David. Let's go back to you. The last question to you. Can you tell us what are the main challenges for agrarian reform to become a reality in Indonesia, and how global trends and international policies impact this?
Yeah, I think the main challenge for Indonesian context is more classical reasons about inconsistency of the governments and the political will of the government. Because sometimes governments making a big promise to the people to implement agrarian reform. In Indonesia, we are targeting 9 million hectares to be redistributed to people. But in terms of realizations in the ground, it's really slow and lack of effort on how to address land inequality, poverty in rural areas, including land conflict resolutions. So, and the second one, I think the biggest challenge now for Indonesia, because now governments turn to prioritize food estate and large-scale plantations, especially on palm oil and mining, including energy transitions. And this is already making huge impact in the ground in Indonesia. Many land grabbing has been make land dispositions from the people. So, and regarding the trend global, there is a negative and positive impact in terms of our struggle. I will start with negative impact. I think the global policy on land, like to prioritize their funds and also debt by one example is by World Bank that prioritize land certifications process in Indonesia without agrarian reform to be implemented in Indonesia, and that's why we keep resistance on this kind of global policy that give a reason to the government not to implement agrarian reform. Only land certifications that also legitimate the land equality situation in Indonesia. And I think we also need to have a dialogue, intersections between the countries, because, for example, in Indonesia, palm oil industry has huge impact for our struggle. Most of the CPO from Indonesia by India, China, Europe, and also America. So how we can understand the situations, because your global policy also making impact on the implementations of agrarian reform. And the positive, I think this is really important, how we as the civil society and agrarian reform movement sometimes using global land forum momentum or ASEAN forum momentum to give pressure to the government. In 2018, we used the global approach on how to make our government to pass on, our president to pass on the president regulations on agrarian reform. So I think that's the negative and positive impact that we should consider, including, I think I want to close my sessions. Okay, Tina. This is my concerns, because we are in the same coalitions with the intergovernment organizations like FAO, IPAD, and World Bank. But sometimes, in the country level, for us, in terms of agrarian reform, we feel like very far away. IPAD, FAO, in country level, doesn't really have a support on agrarian reform agenda. So I think our homework from the Global Land Forum in Colombia, how to connect our coalitions and the approach to make the government see that agrarian reform is needed in Indonesia. I think that's, I want to give attention to intergovernment organization, because sometimes we're facing difficulties on how to sit with the government, because government more listen to intergovernment organization, but not for civil society organization. So I think that's from my note. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Thanks for making a very direct suggestions and comments. That's important. I just want to remind, quería recordar a Carlos que después vas a resumir toda esta discusión, ¿no? En 2 minutos, solo para que estés listo, ¿no? Tendrás 2 minutos, ¿no? Para resumir. Shirley, ¿cuál es la visión de las organizaciones campesinas en torno a la justicia reparativa en el contexto de la disposición de la tierra, particularmente en las regiones que son muy afectadas por la lucha armada?
Sí, desafortunadamente muchos de nuestros líderes, por defender la tierra, el territorio, la vida, el agua, han sido asesinados, asesinadas, por defender esos espacios donde de manera legal o ilegal se despoja la tierra, donde el paramilitarismo desplaza millones de familias a la intemperie, donde no tienen acceso a su alimentación, a su techo, a su hogar. También la militarización, una forma de despojo también del campesinado en nuestro país. Entonces, el movimiento campesino, nuestros líderes,
hemos estado en esta ardua batalla aquí en nuestro país. También estamos en la lucha en contra el extranjerismo. ¿A qué me refiero con ello? El tema de la gentrificación o gentrificación, donde vienen grandes multinacionales, porque nuestros países son muy ricos en una u otras cosas y quieren obtenerlos. Entonces, ¿a costa de qué? A costa de desplazar a nuestra gente, a culturizar a nuestra población. Entonces, en el territorio hemos estado dando esta lucha constante. Queremos una justicia que sea reparadora, pero que sea sobre todo justa, que la tierra sea para quien la trabaja, que la tierra sea para quien realmente está allí día a día. Y no me perdonaría finalizar esta ronda de preguntas. Vengo de San José de Pare, Boyacá, y hablamos soy como fanática de un maestro, Jorge Velosa, que dice: yo soy hija de campesinos y lo digo con orgullo. Campesinos son los míos como lo han sido los tuyos. Que vivan los campesinos y que los dejen vivir, porque el campo sin campesinos existe sin existir. Gracias.
Yes. Can you give us some examples of successful grassroots efforts led by young women in land justice movement?
Thank you. Successful young women-led initiatives. Number one, in Tana River, I come from Kenya, like I said, and we have an arid or very semi-arid area that's called Tana River. We have seen women groups of young women coming together, and they come from a patriarchal society that lives on a community land. And there has been a reality. The women group is called Aja Women Group, of them getting to a place where they are actually able to restore degraded lands after asking their elders to give them 100 acres of land to be able to do farming. The transition from pastoralism into diversification of livelihood, which now brought about green ground farming, has led to these women being millionaires. They have more money than most of us in this room. That's number one. Number two, I will talk about young women collective farming, which is more or less the same, because we already recognize that unfortunately accessing land rights for young women is a challenge. There are so many barriers: unemployment, collaterals that are needed to purchase land. But the reality of these groups coming together to do collective farming has been something that has worked extremely well for Groups Kenya. Another thing is knowledge production. I talked about the reality of legal frameworks that already exist to allow young women to actually access land. But unfortunately, the knowledge part of it and the dissemination of that knowledge is something that has been missing. So allow me to clap for myself, because I recently worked on a book. This book that is here, for example, talks about the issues of land rights for young African women. It has been designed to have a very, let me show it, like this. It has very many images, because we are trying to make sure that it's attractive to a Gen Z reader like me. It has, very simple language, so that whoever who is reading it is able to quickly grasp what we are saying and the need for them to have land rights. Last but not least, I cannot forget to say the power of young women in accessing decision-making positions. Grassroots women have been able to sit in land control boards, to sit in community land management committees. There's a lady by the name Valentine, very short, if you look at her from across the room. But Valentine, at 24 years, sat as a land control board member, making decisions on behalf of our community, together with the government. I also cannot close by not thanking the International Land Coalition, which allowed a young female at the age of 25 years to sit as the co-chair of the Global Council, that being myself, entrusted me with the capacity to actually lead. And you can see, the council did not fall, the coalition did not fall, our term ended, and here we are. So those are part of the successful stories that we have from grassroots women and girls in Kenya. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Doris. Okay, last question for Zaina. What are some of the legal structures that are literally allowing Israel to starve Palestinians, and what are the implications for other communities in places like this?
Okay, not sure this is the best question right after that.
I know.
Lovely moment.
This is the reality of the world.
Right? Yeah, that's the reality. So going back to my reality at least. So as I mentioned in the first question, is for the benefit of time, that we have been put as Palestinians under legal systems that have not been our truths. So until today, if you'll be shocked to realize that the land laws that we apply are not Palestinian land laws, even on the Palestinian men and women. So what we have British laws, we have Ottoman from the Ottoman Empire times, we have Israeli laws, we have Jordanian laws, and we have Palestinian laws that only allow for the organization of the procedures. But the heart of the issue, they are never Palestinian laws. So these laws are all colonial systems, right? And these are never done for the Palestinians or by the Palestinians, and the newest law out of these are more than 50 or 70 years old now. So what does it tell you? That a law that was done with a different logic is controlling and regulating the lives of people who are living in that space. So our laws are not ours. They're imposed on us. And these laws are, if anything, are put as part of a greater strategy. So again, if we look at Gaza, the genocide in Gaza didn't happen over one second. It didn't happen over one day. There has been a system of consequent structures of laws. We have the Jordanian, the Palestinian, the Israeli laws, and Israeli laws have different sets of laws. Some are only applied on the Israeli population, the settler population, so Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. And we have laws that only applied, Israeli laws only applied on Palestinians. 1,800 plus Israeli military orders are regulating the lives of the Palestinian people, including the age of childhood. If you are a child, a Palestinian child, the age of childhood is 12 years old. If you are an Israeli kid, the age of childhood is 18, according to international standards. The Israeli laws, if you are aggregating, convening together more than 6 people, more than 6 Palestinians, you need an Israeli permission, even inside your house. So the olive picking season is a cultural, traditional moment in the Palestinian life. It's part of the tradition. It becomes a moment of fear. Because according to the Israeli laws on Palestinian people, Palestinians cannot get together for murder. The fragmentation of the land, I explained the A, B, C. 60+% of agricultural lands are in Area C. Area C, you're not allowed to go without an Israeli permission, inside the Palestinian lands. So this is, I'm talking about inside Ramallah, my city, inside Jericho, the oldest city in the inside Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus. So these places are ours, but not for us. So these systems are imposed on us. Let's go back to quickly in 1 minute to Gaza. Gaza, as I mentioned, there was 18 years of besiegement. 18 years, you were not allowed to enter Gaza or to exit Gaza. As a human being, as a sheep, as a cow, as a plant, as a seed, you're not allowed to be in Gaza, whether by water, land, or sea. What did people do? Basically, you have kids from Gaza who never saw Jerusalem. You have kids from Gaza who never saw the church in Bethlehem. So what does it do on your memory as a Palestinian person, on your culture, on your history, on your rootedness, and on your narrative? Your story is being erased by others who are coming to take the place and take the story. Coming back to the laws, as I mentioned, during the besiegement of Gaza, before October 7th, Palestinians were not allowed to import or export anything at all, not even syringes in the hospital, cancer medications, all the most fundamental basic needs through laws. So these laws are sites of oppression. So what do people do? People think about what? Resistance. What does it mean? Resistance is not only like the resorting to a tactic or a strategy or something. For us as Palestinians today, resistance is our existence. We do not really have choices. What are we allowed to do? We started to invent language. How many of you have heard the word ecocide in the context of Palestine? to explain what? The death of the environment. Domicile, to explain the death of the houses and construction. Sociocide, the death of the society. We are trying in every single word to articulate our need to be seen, our need to be heard. And then I came to this place here, and it was, honestly, I know I'm going over time now, but I'll just say this quickly. It felt incredibly, incredibly heartwarming to land here. It was one of the very few places where I felt seen. I spent last year at Harvard University, and I spent many years at Columbia University with the U. So I always have like the U and the O. It's the first time in Colombia, and for me to see the graffiti on the wall, the Palestinian flag sitting here, colleagues, comrades, sisters, and brothers wearing the keffiyeh, it felt so heartwarming. The story, of the story of my children. I have a 4-year-old son, and if I want anything, I want people to know we are in the times of genocide against these machineries, with the corporate machineries, state powers. What are we fighting with? Just our right to persist and to exist and continue for our future, for the future of this human world, all of us collectively. So I can't thank you enough for creating this very collective moment, and this moment of super powerful moment that brings us together. The power of the collective is what we need here. This space here, if I can ask you for one favor, look at the person on your right and look at the person on your left and say shukran. And thank you. Thank you.
Carlos, can you bring this all together?
Gracias. Realmente es muy difícil hablar después de estos testimonios que hemos visto y oído. Y quizás más difícil es poder sintetizar todas las experiencias que acabamos de escuchar. Yo solamente diría 3 elementos que creo que han sido estructurales. El primero es que en todos los casos se ha manifestado la importancia de las reformas agrarias en los países, afirmando que es un proceso absolutamente para el futuro, no algo que quedó en el pasado, sino que permite numerosos diálogos de la sociedad. Diálogos quizás con pasados coloniales como el de Indonesia, que hacen muy difícil la estructuración de un proceso de reforma agraria. Diálogos también con un pasado absolutamente orgulloso y ancestral como el de Nigeria y África, pero también ponen el acento en cómo transformar y hacer que esa fortaleza de la ancestralidad sea un diálogo con las mujeres y el futuro. Asimismo, hemos visto también la cuestión de cómo un gobierno durante 2 o 3 periodos ha intentado reconstruir los aparatos de reforma agraria, fortalecer los asentamientos, y que no solamente, y eso lo hemos visto en muchos lugares, hace falta la reforma agraria, sino qué va a pasar después de tener la tierra, ¿no? Quizás tan importante como la tierra es qué pasará después, cuáles son las condiciones que definitivamente es papel del Estado brindar. Asimismo, un segundo elemento que creo que es también transversal es el papel de los movimientos sociales y la participación política de jóvenes, mujeres, comunidades étnicas y comunidades campesinas en estos procesos. Difícilmente un proceso de redistribución de la tierra o de reforma agraria se puede hacer a espaldas de sus sujetos de reforma agraria, ¿no? En ese caso, la participación política reforzada de las comunidades es absolutamente importante. Sus espacios de interlocución política deben tener un nivel, digamos, que les permita hacer y ser parte de algo que les toca a sus vidas. Y en tercer lugar, creo que es importante el espacio y la tierra, porque la tierra define no solamente el acceso a una mercancía, sino es la relación con la naturaleza, es la relación con la vida, pero también es la relación con las gobernanzas de los cuerpos de las mujeres, de los individuos, y también es la gobernanza colectiva la que está ahí en cuestión. Punto aparte, creo que lo merece así, de estas intervenciones es el caso de Palestina. Definitivamente lo que nos han presentado, y bueno, lo hemos visto, lo hemos vivido en directo.